12, so I'm gonna start my talk. So, hi everyone. Thanks for joining me in a full room. I'm happy to see so many people here. I'm also happy to be in the Sphinx Cinema because it's one of my favorite places in Ghent. I used to live in Ghent for 5 years, and I came here often, not to conferences, but just to see movies. I want to start my talk by introducing myself. I will be talking about HTML prototyping, but I kind of want to give some context to what I do. So I work for Mono, and Mono is a team of specialized consultants, and what we try to do is create better software, but from a design perspective. So what you see here is our website. It says less but better, which we stole from Dieter Rams. It's kind of how we work. We want to create less things, but they need to be an improvement over what already exists. I'm going to keep it short. I don't want to make this a commercial thing for my company. We design useful software such as ebook apps, this app to display music notation, and also one of my main projects, which was Ticketmatic, an application for concert organizers to organize events, to sell tickets, and this screen specifically is to set prices for events. So it's mostly software, it's mostly related to business processes, and I'm always thinking about ways to make my work more efficient. I think that's very natural as a designer or as a developer to think about ways to make your work more efficient. Today will be about one of the major parts of what we did to make our work more efficient, which is HTML prototyping. So I want to tell you a bit of a story about a huge project that I was working on a few years ago. And I was hired on this project as a user interface designer. So the context of this project was that it had a massive budget. There were over 50 people working on it. And I was hired to do visual design, interaction design, and also to work on the content. And it's not really marketing. It's more like there's a business logic and it has to be applied to the application. So it's kind of like user experience work, but I was working mostly on the user interface, yes. So I received this huge Photoshop file from the advertising agency, and it had all these styles of what things were supposed to look like. So, for example, what a wizard should look like, or what a table should look like. And it was already decided for me that we would be using fireworks. We would be using fireworks to transfer stuff from the master PSD to the fireworks files, which contained the actual designs of every screen. And we were working with 3 people at the time within that UX team, and we would have to find a way to synchronize our files to work together. And for those who don't know fireworks, it's a program that's very much like Sketch today, but it was 5-6 years ago very popular for screen design because it was the only application that was really made for screen design. So you could really see the pixels, and it had the concept of artboards, of hotspots, and all these things that are popular in design tools today, like Sketch and InVision, but a couple of years ago. So the problem was that we quickly got out of sync. Within development, there is this good concept called versioning and Git, but in design it doesn't really exist in a good way. So we would all work on our computers separately and start renaming files and having different versions of different files. And the only way to really get to like a singular document, a master design file that showed what the design should look like, was to sit together and to manually do it. And of course that didn't happen, so there was a lot of chaos. There are people out there working on a solution like this. It's called Figma. So this is kind of like a design app in your browser. And the idea is that you can, like the way you would work together within a Google Docs document, you could do it from a design standpoint. These tools are coming. They were not there yet, and they are not here now. So we needed a solution to be able to work together in the interim. So to summarize, it was hard to make global changes. We were out of sync with each other. And to make things worse, some parts of the design were already implemented by the developers. So if you wanted to change something, you really had to go through the whole process. For example, you want to change the color of a button, you have to go talk to 2 people and then to the developers. So it's a lot of work and also a very inflexible system kind of. So I thought the way to create quality software, which is kind of my mission to create the best software, is to iterate, and iterate again. And if you can't change stuff, if you are inflexible, you have a problem. So I thought, how to fix this workflow, how to fix this issue. Maybe I can apply some of the things I learned at my previous job as a web designer and just use HTML and CSS, and we could create this scalable system. So the team, what I did was I took that user interface and I kind of made small parts, and then over the course of a few weeks, it evolved into a full prototype that showed what the software would look like. And it was pretty interesting because the backend developers at the time, they weren't really CSS guys, and they were at some point responsible for doing styles. So I was happy with this separation of concerns where the designer type person would implement the visual stuff in CSS. Now, this also created a bit of a situation that I find is very common within projects, which I call the lone front-ender, where you are the only person that really knows HTML and CSS, and you're stuck in between the back-end team and maybe like a functional analyst and management team that makes the design decisions. So I think that's an interesting situation. I'm not going to go too much into it because I don't have all the time. But I want to clarify something next to that, which is that what I'm talking about, making a prototype of your designs, it's not about designing in the browser. So I strongly feel that while you can design some stuff in the browser, that the browser is not the best way to, the best tool, or coding in general is not the best tool to design something. I don't know if anyone has seen this talk, but this is from Brett Victor, my personal hero. He had a talk called Inventing on Principle, and basically what he talks about is that creators need an immediate connection to what they are creating. So if you are in a graphics design program like Photoshop, Sketch, and you think I want to have a triangle or a circle, like within a second you have this because you know your keyboard shortcuts, and you can kind of create as you are thinking. While in code, by the time you have this circle positioned in the right way, you are already 1 minute, you're busy for 1 minute trying to figure out the right CSS. Even up until this day, like I've been swinging back and forth between designing more in the browser and designing more within a graphical user interface app like Sketch. And up until this day, I do both. So there's high fidelity design that lives in a graphics design program, and there's a very high fidelity interactive representation of the software, which is a prototype. And what I think is important about this prototype, or what I didn't mention before, is that it's mostly about evaluating in the browser. So it's not designing in the browser, it's kind of evaluating in the browser in a way that when you have this application, you want to see what it feels like. And if you have this static mockup, this JPEG, or just a series of images, you don't really know what it feels like. But if you have an interactive medium, the browser, you can start to show some things and see what it feels like. So for example, this interactive seating plan, I don't know if the video will repeat, this way to display a seating plan. Then another example that was just not possible within the design tools is this way to scale up from a small phone to a large phone, the way to display what animations should look like. And also dealing with large amounts of data, which is really a pain to draw in a graphics design program, but within a HTML context, it's much easier. So I've been talking about what HTML prototyping is, but it's maybe still a bit abstract. So I'm gonna show you a demo of a real live project that we did for a client. And I hope everything goes well with the mirroring. Okay, so it's actually running right now, but I'm gonna stop running it. So this project is called Desk Drive, and what I do here is I run a command called gulp. You know, who uses gulp here? Many people, okay. You're all JavaScript developers, so of course. So it's running the necessary commands to launch the prototype. And this is a kind of like an ERP, electronic retail processing application to process orders. And it's a small project, but I will show you a bit about it and compare it to, for example, what I have here is the sketch file. So So what I have here is a bunch of designs, and at some point you don't really, there's no real progress in the designs. You want to see what it feels like in the browser. What the HTML prototype is a representation of the same design in the browser, but there is no backend attached. So it's all static HTML and CSS. There is no database connection whatsoever, and it's semi-interactive. So you can click buttons, for example. You can see what it feels like to use the drop-downs, and there's parts to it that are more interactive than a static mockup, but it's not like the real application. So it's this kind of in-between thing between an actual application and a mockup. What I was doing here is that I was running a command which is using Bedrock. Bedrock is a software that we made, or kind of like a static site generator that we made to make HTML prototypes. And I want to walk through a few features or a few things that it does, just to give you an idea. The first thing you already saw, which is the index page. So if you go to the root, you will see that there is an index page, and it kind of lists all the pages within the prototype. But the same index page is also accessible if you type Ctrl-M. So there's a shortcut menu. So on any page you can kind of find out which other pages exist within the prototype. One important or interesting part is the style guide. So I don't know who uses component style guides in their job these days. Okay, so some people. It's becoming really popular to have this kind of guide that shows what your user interface should look like, what code is behind every component. So what Bedrock does is also partly generate documentation, but there's also a manual part where you have to enter the documentation. And it has overview page with your different styles for headings. It has a documentation for the different colors within your project, and this comes straight from the SCSS file, so it's actually read from the SCSS file, so it updates as you update the colors in your projects. And there's also documentation, for example, for the icons. Now, within this project, the client requested that we just use the standard Bootstrap icons, so I can't really show the icon documentation that we have, but that should give you a good idea of what an HTML prototype is. Now, I'm going to go into just one other page that kind of demonstrates the power of the HTML prototype. So one thing that this client requested was that they have these really long forms, and they really wanted to make sure that it would work. So we made this this kind of representation of a very large form, just to be able to show like what is it going to look like, is the UI going to scale up. And they also requested that if the browser would become less wide, we would work with the modules in a certain way, that they would drop down within a certain way. So if you look at this, for example, and then if you compare it to the actual design files, you will see that it kind of looks the same, and that's on purpose. There's a part where you design, where you decide about the colors, and there's a part where you think about the interactions, where you try to evaluate that within the browser. So I hope this gives you an idea of what I mean by the HTML prototyping. And then I want to continue and explain a bit more about how we came to this conclusion that we needed this tool to do our work. So in the beginning, if we go back to that major project that I was working on, that huge project where nothing was synchronized, I thought I can fix it with HTML and CSS. But the problem was that soon enough I found out I needed includes. Of course, you want to stay dry, or you don't want to repeat yourself, so you need includes. I was a huge fan of Compass, which is a framework built on top of SCSS or SAS. So I wanted that as well. And what I'm explaining right now is just how the tech stack evolved over time. So at some point I discovered Jekyll. Who knows Jekyll? Okay, so maybe I don't have to explain what a static site generator is then. But in short, a static site generator, it's kind of a way to generate HTML from a bunch of files. So it's like a processor for your HTML files, and it allows you to have some features that you don't have if you just use classic HTML and CSS or PHP, such as includes or includes within includes. You can apply logic to your templates. There are content generators, and you can also, for example, that image I showed with the large amounts of data, you can also load this data from a JSON file, for example. So it's a bit more fluid, and it's more towards an application, but not really an application. So what ended up happening was that we started using Jekyll in a lot of our work, and the tech stack evolved to use Jekyll. At the time, Grunt was becoming popular, so we would use Grunt to compile our SCSS. We would use Bower, which nobody, I think, uses anymore because it's all NPM these days, to do our package management. And what we found out was that the method was working really well. So we would use HTML prototyping for every project. And there was this one project where I kind of went into the very extremes, and I recreated the entire application in prototype form. So every screen in the actual application was also in prototype form. So this was over 150 templates. And the problem with static site generators is that they actually generate, well, like once you change a file, they generate the whole site again. So I had this huge prototype, and It was so slow to render, like every time I would change a file, it would take 20 seconds to see a change in the browser. So it wasn't really that immediate connection to what I was creating. It was kind of gone, and I got really, really mad. I didn't like the HTML prototyping anymore because it was actually slowing me down. So we thought, okay, let's fix it. And we changed Jekyll, which is built on Ruby, to Wintersmith, because we had this theory that Ruby is slow, and maybe we can change it by swapping it with Node. But that didn't really solve the problem. Then we thought Roger style, wat je zelf doet, doe je beter. The non-Belgians, for the non-Belgians, what you do yourself, you do better. I think this is not exclusive to Belgium, the idea that you think you can do it better. So my colleague Ruben, he coded his own static site generator, and it was actually an improvement. It really worked well until I hit another wall, and it would take 20 seconds again to load my prototype. So in the end, we found a solution in the form of Express. So instead of always generating the website again and again, we would use a server to dynamically request the resources that we needed. And my current colleague, Thomas, coded all of this, and we called it Bedrock. So we gave our static site generator a name. So what you saw running in the demo earlier, that's what we build. So there's this very bare bones, ugly website, bedrock.mono.company. I'm looking for a web designer to help me improve it, but it's free, it's open source, it's MIT licensed. You can do whatever you want with it, and if you want to give it a try, it's on GitHub. So to go into the tech stack of what it currently works, it looks a bit like this, where we are using very modern tools. There's even some parts that, as a designer, I don't really understand, such as the right bottom part one about Babel and Browserify. So some things are getting a bit too technical, even for me as one of the co-creators of Bedrock. But for the JavaScript persons in the team, that's really helpful. There's 3 main commands, which is gulp, which I used before to run the prototype, and then you can work in it. There's gulp build, which creates a build that you can put on a server somewhere, and Bedrock upgrade, which is just a way to upgrade Bedrock to the latest version. And I want to go a bit into some implementation details that we made just to make it easier to make a prototype. So one of the first things that I showed you was the page navigation, and how it works is that whenever you create a new template, it's automatically added to this list. So you don't have to go on and add it manually somewhere or manage your navigation. It's just automatically there. Another thing that I think is important is what you're really trying to do within these prototypes is showing the application in all of its states. So I'm gonna see if I can go back to the prototype. So for example, there is this form, and it's a page that is just a regular form, so you can enter some data. But there's also a save state where there is this message here that says it's saved, and there's also this error state, which really the only difference between the 2 templates is this red bar that shows there is an error. Now, as Harry Roberts said in his presentation, we have to stay dry. So if you look at the actual code behind this, I will see if I can pull this up quickly. There is a template called form.jade, and we are using Jade, which is really a really nice language on top of HTML, kind of like a templating language. And the only difference between this page with the error and the other page without the error is just this code. If error, we are showing the alert, which is the bootstrap alert. And if you go to the actual other template, it extends it extends the initial template with a variable error true. So you can apply this nice logic and you can stay very dry in your templates. 5 minutes. So what I wanna demo next, let's see if I already did this. So what I wanna talk about next is how the documentation works. So as I mentioned, we are really trying our best to make it as easy as possible to be able to make new templates, but also to document your project. So for example, we have all these alerts within the project, but maybe let's say there is some new alert coming. You would go to the alerts section and maybe you would call it my custom alert .jade. Oh. Then if I type something, I'm just going to copy paste an existing alert as a base. And maybe I will call this alert custom. And then go into the SCSS for the alert and type something that maybe looks custom. So background purple, color white. And what ended up happening now is that I just created this thing, and it ends up being in the documentation automatically just by way of adding the file. So this makes it easy to really make large documentation. So for example, if I were to copy all of these files, you would see that the page is now full of the different variations of the component. So this way you can really keep things consistent. And one thing that I've been experimenting with is working the other way around. So as you can see in the code here on this form page is that we are referencing the direct HTML, but wouldn't it be more interesting if we referenced the component instead? So there is only one single source of truth. I'm not going to do it because I think I will mess up on the live coding, but that's what I've been trying to do to get to a consistent user interface. I think one important detail to mention is linkability. So oftentimes within development, I think who uses Jira or some kind of issue management system as a programmer, you have to be able to link to things. So within the style guide, there are these hashtags, and you can link, for example, to be floating alert, and the person following the link will end up on the right position. I think there are some more details that I could explain, but I only have 2 minutes, so I'm gonna jump to conclusions. And what for us, the conclusion is that in order to create the best software, we need better tools, and HTML prototyping, what I just explained, is one of those tools, but it's not the holy grail. It's just another tool in our toolbox. We use all kinds of tools to get to the best design that we possibly could. One interesting tweet that I keep coming back to is this idea of a divide between design and developers, which, as Koen Bok, the founder of SOFA in Holland, said, there is no divide, it's just a self-imposed arbitrary boundary. We are looking for someone in our team, so if you think this talk was interesting, you want to work on interesting HTML prototypes, interfaces, the future of software, come talk to me. If you have front-end skills, that's also very welcome. Thank you.